We're making good progress. We can't do nothing. That would be catastrophic, I'm persuaded. You know, when the Secretary of the Treasury and the Chair of the Federal Reserve come to you and say the nation's at a precipice and we must act, you've got to give that some credibility. And it wasn't just them. There were many economists who were saying the same thing. And not just the economists' opinions, but the objective measures of what was happening in terms of the credit markets just freezing up, the interest rates that were being charged on overnight lending, the inability to get credit. But when Secretary Paulson first gave us his 2.5-page bill, it was very much more like a ransom note than a piece of legislation. It said $700 billion, no oversight, no consequences, unlimited authority, and we said, conservative or liberal, or centrist, you just can't do that. And no protection for the taxpayers. Over the week and a half, we put together a bill, and I think we should be pretty proud of, and the American people have reason to feel pretty good about. We had oversight so that the assets that were acquired would have some real value. We had independence to reduce conflict of interest, so you didn't have people who caused the problem buying back assets to enrich themselves. We had measures to control executive compensation. We had protections, incentives to try to help homeowners avoid foreclosure. If we're buying a mortgage-backed security, the people who hold that security should protect the mortgage holders a bit. I led the effort to put in place what is called the Tanner language, which was a guarantee to protect the taxpayers. I felt from the start we had to pay for this thing, and we shouldn't pay for it on the back of taxpayers. There was some folks proposed an immediate tax. You could make a good argument for that, but you didn't want to say, well, here we are at a time of crisis raising taxes. What the Tanner language did was say, look, the plan is acquire assets, and then over 5 or so years as they accrue in value, because once we get through the crisis, there are some real value to these. The $700 billion figure is not what this will cost us. We will sell these assets back over time. So at the end of 5 years, we've said, assess what the taxpayers paid out, assess how much we've brought back in from the sale of the assets. The difference, we will assess a fee on financial transactions in some fashion. The President has to report back to the Congress what that amount is, and then propose a mechanism to assess a fee or other charge on the financial markets to pay back the taxpayer. So the taxpayer can rest assured that we are going to hold the taxpayer whole. The average guy who's paid his mortgage, paid his taxes, had nothing to do with the debacle, is going to be held harmless. Now, some have said, and I pushed that, our leadership and the leadership on the Republicans, I didn't think got the message that the taxpayer should be held harmless. So John Tanner, who wrote the legislative language, and myself sent a letter and rounded up by, I think, about 40 signatures, really in a very short order, and sent it to the leadership implying, if you don't put this in, you will not have the votes. And that, I think, got us a lot closer. And if the taxpayers knew it was in there, they'd feel a great deal assured. Some wanted it more rigorous. Some wanted an immediate tax. Some wanted an automatic trigger at 5 years. You can make arguments for both, but I thought we'd reached a compromise. What I think will happen now is this. If you turn 12 votes, if 12 people change, we can get there. I know people are working on it over the weekend. I know there are things about, for example, raising the FDIC insurance limits, some other issues that shouldn't be tremendously controversial. You have to be careful. If you satisfy somebody on the hard right, you may lose votes on the left. If you satisfy somebody on the left, you may lose votes on the right. I think we'll make some moderate changes to it. We will not, I can't imagine we vote on Thursday, and the reason for that is you can't fail this time. You can't sustain another failure. You'll see a 1,000-point drop if we miss it this time. What I think we'll see is briefings of both caucuses on Thursday, I hope, or possibly even wait till next week. Serious behind-the-scenes negotiations with the White House, the House, and Senate on both sides, and then some much more careful vote counting. And I think we'll pass it probably by a margin of at least 15 this next time. And it'll be a bill that we can feel reasonably good about. It won't satisfy everybody, but I think it'll shore up the damage. Having said that, the economy will still be in trouble.